Grade 12 Economics. Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Mplongo, and I'm back here with you to continue with our content, as today we're pushing and completing the business cycles. This lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibon. Happy Valentine's to all of you. I believe you enjoyed the day, and I believe you'll still enjoy today's lesson. So today we are still on macroeconomics, and under macroeconomics we are covering the business cycle. Under business cycle we are moving further to the new economic paradigm, as well as features underpinning forecasting. So remember last week, what did we cover here? We covered a part of the business cycle, which include the composition of the business cycle, reasons for the business cycle, types of business cycle, typical and actual business cycle, and then we also covered the government policy. So today we continue and we are completing the topic number 2, which is the business cycle, by touching on the new economic paradigm and features underpinning forecasting. It is very important for you to know that these topics we are covering today under business cycle are essay type questions. So be aware of such. You need to really to pay your attention, as you'll be seeing how this content will be outlaid to you so that you can be able to compile your essay. So the following are the lesson objectives that will be covered during the course of this lesson. So after this lesson, you will be understanding both the demand side and supply side policies on how they can be used at the peak economy or when the economy is faced by economic slump, when smoothing business cycle. It will also allow you to understand the supply side policies that are used when smoothing the business cycle. That's when now we combine both the demand side and supply side as for an economic paradigm. You will understand the relationship between the inflation and the unemployment. That's when we will be explaining to you the Phillips curve thoroughly. And then also you will understand the use of supply side policies to stimulate aggregate supply. Then also demand side policies to stimulate aggregate demand. You will also get a graphical explanation of economic paradigm. Then you will also understand features underpinning forecasting, which includes the likes of indicators such as leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincidence indicators, composite indicators, then extrapolation, moving averages, the trend line, amplitude, and length. So it is believed that you already know the following content. As for the previous lesson, the composition and features of business cycles. Also business cycle explanations, types of business cycle, reasons for the business cycle, the government policy. This is the content that was covered last week on our lesson here. So as usual, we are starting with the examination guideline. The first part of examination guideline was covered last week, but if you are new today, please note that this is the exam guideline under the business cycle that you must ensure that as you study, you follow it, because this is what the examiners normally follow as they assess you in the examinations. You must be able to describe the concepts related to the business cycle, and then also briefly explain the nature of business cycles, demonstrate, illustrate a typical business cycle. Remember, we have a typical business cycle and the real or actual business cycle. And then also we have, be able also to broadly outline the real business cycle, like I've just mentioned, briefly discuss exogenous reasons for the business cycle that we also call monetarist or monetarist approach or monetarist school of thought. Also, you must be able to briefly discuss endogenous reasons for the business cycle that we call Keynesian approach or Keynesian school of thought or interventionist. Also be able to compare both explanations where we talk about endogenous reasons as well as exogenous reasons. You must also be able to give a broad outline of types of business cycle where we talk about Jagler, Kitchen, Kondrativ, and Kuznets. Then also be able to explain the composition of the following policies, namely the fiscal policy, which consists of taxes and government expenditure, briefly relate to the budget. And then also monetary policy, where we talk about interest rate or repo rate, open market transaction or open market operations, cash reserve requirement or reserve requirement ratio, and moral suasion or moral persuasion. And then also for today, we are on these two parts where you must be able to discuss in detail what we call the new economic paradigm. You must be able to discuss in detail economic paradigm. So this is the new economic paradigm or smoothing the business cycle. In this case, remember it's an essay. It's a part of your section C that will come across this year, where the examiner would be saying to you, maybe discuss in detail the new economic paradigm or smoothing business cycle for 26 marks. That's when you have to be able to discuss both the demand side policies and the supply side policies that are used to smooth the business cycle. In that case, we have demand side, which include the likes of the use of monetary policy and fiscal policy in both way, expansionary and contractionary. Remember, under expansionary, that's when our economy is decreasing, so we need to expand or upturn the economy. And then also contractionary, that's when the economy is increasing, so or maybe it's at peak, we need to downturn the economy because it's causing the effect of the inflation or more level of import due to more money chasing few goods. And then also you must be able to relate to inflation peak, like I've just mentioned, that at peak we have the situation of inflation because we have more money chasing few goods. So for that reason, consumers will be demanding more goods and services, while firms will be faced by supply constraints. At peak of prosperity, our domestic firms have exhausted all of their factors of production or all of their inputs. They don't have anything extra to produce. So for that reason, that result to local consumers deciding to import goods from other countries because our firms have already exhausted all resources available. Also, relate to unemployment at trough. So meaning you must be able to use the business side to explain the effect of unemployment at trough. Remember, when you are faced by a situation of trough, people are unemployed due to the fact that factors of production are underutilized or inputs are underutilized. As our inputs are underutilized, that simply means there's a high level of unemployment in there due to the fact that firms have shut down, firms are not existing, and then others have withdrew their investment due to the fact that there's a poor or lower level of economic activities. They become pessimistic on investing on the country's economy, which lead to them withdrawing their investments. So factors of production are underutilized, which lead to high level of unemployment. So be able to relate to inflation as for the peak of prosperity, and then also unemployment as for trough, while using the Phillips curve. And then explain supply side policies and how aggregate supply can be stimulated through a reduction in cost of doing the business, improving efficiency of inputs, and improving efficiency of markets. That's where now we talk about the likes of providing subsidies to businesses to produce more goods and sell at the lower cost. Remember that in South Africa, the cost of doing the business are relatively high. So in that case, if the government can intervene by supporting businesses through maybe production subsidies, they will be able to produce more goods and services, which will be increasing aggregate supply. And then also we talk about still on the cost of doing the business, we have the cost of the infrastructure. We know that the cost of the infrastructure in South Africa is relatively high for our businesses, and those costs are controlled by the government. So we talk about the fact that the likes of energy, the transport, as well as communication are very expensive, and they add to the cost of doing the business for businesses, which will be decreasing their capability to produce due to the production cost that is very high. So should the government intervene by lowering this cost of doing the business, that can assist our businesses to produce more goods and increase aggregate supply. And then we talk about also in the administrative cost. The cost of admin is also relatively high in South Africa. Our businesses are stuck most on administration to run their businesses. We talk about the cost of inspection, and we talk about also the IT return submission, which is relatively expensive for our local businesses. Also, we talk about the most of regulation that are put by the government in place, which delays functionality of the businesses, which we regard at times as a red tape. It becomes a problem for our businesses to enter and function in the market because of administrative obstacles that exist in the market. So if those costs can be reduced, that can be a greater incentive to our businesses to produce more goods, which will lead to the increase in aggregate supply. And then we go further. We talk about improving efficiency of input. Still on inputs now. We are moving to inputs, which is number 2. In this case, remember, if ever our inputs or factors of production and technology are used at the optimum level, there will be higher level of goods and services produced. But if our factors of production are underutilized, there will be lower production of goods and services, which will be decreasing aggregate supply. So improving efficiency of inputs will always lead to our firms being more efficient and producing more goods and services that will lead to the increase in aggregate supply. So in there, we are mainly focused on the following. Capital consumption. We are mainly saying the capital or machinery or equipment is a part of wear and tear. As we produce goods and services, our machines lose the value, or our machines depreciate, or maybe the lifespan of our machines will be dropping because of what? Because they are the part of wear and tear. They lose their value during the course of the production. So in that case, as they get older, they produce less goods and services, which result to them becoming maybe less productive in the near future. So it is important for our businesses to replace those machines or equipment regularly, so that they will always keep up with the new technical trends to produce more goods and services, which will be aiding to the increase in the aggregate supply in the economy. And then also in that case, we continue to talk about maybe making a simple example that in South Africa, commercial vehicles are replaced or disposed in the period of 5 years. And then also the computer equipment is replaced or disposed in the period of 3 years, so that business can be able to adapt to the new technical trends, because technology changes day by day. So business should always be in line with the new technology, so that they will produce more goods and services. And then we talk about the what you call depreciation allowance is still there. We say as these machines are losing their value, the state should intervene to support our domestic business by giving them some depreciation allowances, so that they can be able to fund their purchase of new machines in order to keep up with new technology, also to produce more goods and services. We talk about human resource development. If we refer to human resource development, we are all about education and training. We are all about having our labor force or workforce having access to proper healthcare facilities. So we are saying the labor force or workforce must be trained and must be educated. They must be skilled, so that they will always be productive. Remember, skilled workers are efficient. They produce goods at the right time, right quality, and the right quantity. So if workers should be trained through education and training, that will increase the productivity and lead to more aggregate supply. And then also healthy workforce is also productive, because if workers are healthy enough, they have access to proper healthcare or medication, they tend to be very much productive. And then we talk about taxation. We know that a high level of taxes are the disincentive in the economy. If we say it is incentive, we mean they are not benefiting the economy, those high taxes. So the increase in maybe a personal income tax will always lead to workers being discouraged to work. So we say high personal income tax is a disincentive to work. It discourages workers from working, because as they are taxed aggressively, that simply means most of their income goes to the government as tax revenues. And then also the increase in value-added tax is the disincentive to produce. Businesses find it difficult to produce because the value-added tax increases the selling price, which really doesn't benefit businesses. And then also we talk about the increase in the direct tax as for company tax or business tax or corporate tax. What happens if corporate tax is very, very high, businesses find it difficult to invest. So it becomes a disincentive to invest for businesses in the economy, due to the fact that it decreases their net profits. So the state should intervene by ensuring that it supports businesses on these inputs, so that they will be able to produce more goods and increase aggregate supply. And then we also talk about the free advisory schemes. These are services offered to local businesses that are producing to exporting to the global market. It is also offered to local businesses that are willing to relocate to underdeveloped areas where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. Those are free advisory schemes. And then after that, we go to the last one, which is improving efficiency of markets. We know that if markets are inefficient, there will be less productivity. Goods are not produced at the right quality, right quantity, and the right time. So market efficiency can mainly be improved by the likes of removing some laws and bylaws that restrict the functionality of market. It can also be improved by improving competition. If ever there's a high level of competition in the economy, there will be market efficiency, because there will be more businesses existing to produce the same product, which will lead to more quantity of that particular product produced. And then also we talk about businesses like SOEs or state-owned entities must not be competing with the private sector industries, because the private sector is not funded by the government, while the state-owned enterprises are funded by the government through the budget system every year. And they are not even profit motive. Everything they do, they ensure social wellness, while the private sector businesses function to make the profit. So if they have to compete with one another, that will be pushing private sector businesses out of the market, which is bad for the economy. So in this case, deregulation, remember, deregulation is the withdrawal or removal of unnecessary laws and regulations by the government in the economy. If ever the government regulates, that simply means that some laws that were existing to block the entry of new businesses will be removed, which will be attracting more businesses, including FDIs, to enter the market and produce more goods and services. Whenever there is a deregulation, what normally happens, there will be high level of competition in the economy due to the fact that businesses will find it more easy and convenient to invest in South African economy. But then regulations make it difficult for businesses, because we all know that businesses are not willing to invest in the country where there is too much government intervention. So if ever the state deregulate, remove those laws and regulations, it will be easy for businesses to enter the market and compete easily, and then that will be increasing the competition. Then we talk about the competition. We know that competition is one of very important factors in the market and the economy. It results to more goods being produced at a shorter period of time. It improves the quality of goods and services. It improves the efficiency. It also lowers prices for consumers. So if ever there's high level of competition, that become a greater incentive for businesses. I mean, also for the economy, because there will be variety of businesses producing variety of goods and services, which will be increasing aggregate supply. So what is the government doing in South Africa to ensure that achieve it is able to achieve the high level of competition? South African government simply uses South African Commission Policy Act Policy Act, the Act number 1998 of 98, whereby the government simply imposed this policy or this act to promote the healthy competition between businesses, to ensure fair practices between businesses in the economy, to prevent power abuse by monopolies and oligopolies, to prevent anti-competitive behavior that occur in the economy. So the policy or this act uses three competition bodies, namely we talk about the Competition Commission, which is the primary investigator of alleged firms that have been maybe alleged to be involved in restrictive practices. You will learn more about that under Perfect Market. And then we have Competition Tribunal, which is the decision maker who impose fines or withdraw fines to firms that have been found guilty of misconduct, like the collusion, etc. And then we have the Competition Appeals Court, which functions to allow businesses to appeal in case they are unhappy with some decisions taken against them. Maybe if they've been found guilty of misconduct, then they are maybe slapped with heavy fines. And then from then, that will be the end. Then we'll draw the graph that indicates the economic paradigm, where we have moved both demand side and supply side policies. After that, we'll move to features, underpinning, forecasting. The following are the basic concepts. So economic paradigm, economic perspective, focus on how fiscal policy and monetary policy are used to influence the economy. Basically, we can extend the definition to say is the economic perspective that focus on how demand side and supply side policies are used or implemented to influence the economy. Inflation, remember, is known as a significant increase in general price level over a period of time. Unemployment occurs when some economically active people or population who are willing to work are unemployed. And then infrastructural costs are costs of basic facilities necessary to support economic activities. Capital consumption is the appreciation or depreciation of an asset during the production process. We continue. Human resource development is the act of making skills and training as well as healthcare as a priority for workforce or labor force. Incentives, these are benefits given by government to industries direct or indirect in support of production process. Corporate tax is a tax paid by business on their profits. Personal income tax, the tax paid by employees on their wages and salaries. Inputs, resources necessary to generate a productivity in any producing corporation. In there, we talk about likes of factors of production. This is the board of our lesson. So we talk about the new economic paradigm, at the same time features, underpinning, forecasting. So what is meant by the new economic paradigm? So we say this is the mixture of two policies, both the demand side and supply side policies to influence aggregate supply in the economy. So in this case, under paradigm, we focus on the two. demand side and supply side policies. So it is the mixture of both the demand side and supply side policies to influence both aggregate supply and aggregate demand in the economy. So they are used at the same time so that there will be no inflation effect. If we stimulate aggregate demand, we must also ensure that aggregate supply is stimulated so that these businesses can be able to produce more goods and services, so that aggregate supply will be able to respond to the change in aggregate demand, because it becomes unfair whenever the government maybe intervene by influencing aggregate demand positively without influencing aggregate supply, because consumers will find themselves having more money supply or more money available in their pocket and demand more goods and services. As they demand more goods and services, you find that our firms or businesses are faced by supply constraints or supply challenges, so they won't be able to react to the change in demand. That simply means the aggregate demand will increase faster than aggregate supply, which will lead to the demand pull inflation in the economy. It is therefore important for you to understand that the new economic paradigm functions to make use of both policies simultaneously, demand side policies and supply side policies, to prevent the effect of inflation. That's why we say it is the mixture of both economic policies to ensure that there is no inflation effects, to ensure that aggregate supply manage to respond to the change in aggregate demand, because we are faced by this problem. The demand increases faster than aggregate supply. As aggregate demand increases faster, then the supply will be less. That situation will lead to the inflation, because consumers are demanding more than what can be supplied by local firms, because our local firms are faced by supply constraints. So we are saying using these two policies simultaneously will be able to uplift our local firms also at the same time, so that as consumers are demanding more, also firms are able to produce more goods and supply more goods and services in the economy. That will curb the issue of inflation in the economy. It's economic perspective that eliminates uncertainties on the use of both economic policies while smoothing business cycle. The new economic paradigm refers to government policies designed to ensure high rate of economic growth without having supply constraints or inflation effect. So the use of these economic policies ensure that it ensures that there are no supply constraints in the economy, and also there is no inflation effect that will happen, because as the demand increases, the supply also increases. So in that situation, we'll never have an issue of demand pull inflation. It is embedded in both the demand side policies and supply side policies. So this new economic paradigm is mainly based on both the demand side and supply side policies. It doesn't take one side, it takes both sides of the demand side as well as the supply side policy, so that they will both be stimulated at the same time, so that the aggregate supply will always respond to the change in aggregate demand. So these are the demand side policies. What is meant by demand side policies? These are the policies used by the government and central bank to influence aggregate demand in the economy. Whenever demand side policies are influenced or implemented, that will always lead to the change in demand. If ever the economy is at peak, that simply means the economy is doing extremely well. The government can intervene by implementing the constructionary or restrictionary fiscal policy, by increasing taxes and decreasing government spending to decrease money flow and disposable income in the economy. But should the economy be at trough or depression, the state can intervene by using the same policy but expansionary, so that there will be more money flow and more demand for goods and services in the economy. Same thing applies with the monetary policy. The Reserve Bank can intervene by implementing expansionary monetary policy when the economy is faced by contraction period, trough or depression. The state can use expansionary policy so that there will be more money supply and more demand for goods and services. But if the economy is at peak, the Reserve Bank can intervene by implementing restrictionary or contractionary monetary policy by decreasing money supply in the economy. So they can be applied expansionary if the economy is faced by contraction period or economic slump, or constructionary if the economy is faced by expansion period or economic boom. Whenever the economy is up there at peak, we can implement constructionary policies. If the economy is at trough, we can implement expansionary policies. Changes in one of demand side policies always result in the change in aggregate demand in the economy. Should we maybe increase taxes, there will be less disposable income in the economy and there will be less demand for goods and services. But should we decrease taxes, there will be more disposable income and more demand for goods and services. Should we maybe increase repo rate, there will be less money supply and less demand for goods and services. But if the central bank decrease repo rate, there will be more money supply and more demand for goods and services. Demand side policies include inflation, unemployment, monetary policy, and fiscal policy. So these are the demand side policies that will be discussed now. We start with we have already discussed the fiscal policy and the monetary policy on our previous lesson and smoothed the business, but we'll also recap on them. But the main focus here, what is new to you today, is inflation and unemployment and how they relate through the Phillips curve. So expansionary fiscal policy. So the expansionary fiscal policy occurs when the government decreases taxation while increasing government spending. We call this one the expansionary fiscal policy because the government is trying to expand the economy. Under which situation of the economy can the government implement this expansionary fiscal policy? When the economy is at trough or when the economy is at economic slump, the Reserve Bank the government can intervene by using expansionary fiscal policy by decreasing taxation so that people will have money in their pockets and demand more goods and services. Also, increasing government spending so that there will be more projects opening in the economy and also there will be more employment opportunities, more money flow and more demand for goods and services because we are clearly aware of the fact that as people hold on more money, they are always tempted to spend. Expansionary fiscal policy is implemented when economy is on the contraction period, such as depression and trough. Yes, we only expand when the economy is faced by a contraction period in your business cycle. The simultaneous use of taxation and government spending accelerates or increases the aggregate demand a reaction faster than when one of the two instruments is used. So here we are saying, if ever the state use both taxation and government spending similarly at the same time or simultaneously, that will lead to the quick reaction on the demand because firstly there will be more money flow in the economy, meaning as government reduce taxes, that will lead to people having more money in their pockets and there will be more disposable income, which will lead to more demand. At the same time, the government on the other hand is relieving people that are employed and people that are buying goods and services, while on the other hand, on government spending, the government is creating job opportunities also in the economy, allowing unemployed people to get some jobs, which will be increasing money flow even more in the economy, which will lead to more money flow, more demand for goods and services. The increase in government spending increase cash injection and trigger more employment opportunities as well as disposable income. Once the government increase its spending, be aware of the following. The state can increase its spending on maybe improving the infrastructure, which will create job opportunities, increasing wages and salaries for its employees, increasing the production and the provision of public goods and services, also increasing funds to state-owned entities. So that's a part of money supply. That's a part of government spending. Also, increasing social transfers in the economy. That will lead to more money flow in the economy, which will be encouraging people to have more disposable income and increase aggregate demand in the economy. Aggregate demand increase if disposable income has also increased. We know that people are always tempted to spend. If they have money, they mainly demand goods and services. We continue. Decreased taxation, the decrease in taxation puts more income on the pocket of the consumer. We know, like I've been mentioning, if the government intervenes by lowering taxes, that allows people to have more money in their pockets. As they have more money in their pockets, the first thing that comes into their mind, they want to spend or demand goods and services, which will be increasing aggregate demand. So the decrease in taxation, direct and indirect tax, positively affect disposable income as well as real income. What is meant by real income? Remember, real income refers to the quantity of goods one can afford with the available income, while disposable income is the income that one can be able to spend. Indirect tax has a tendency to increasing the real income and the aggregated demand. How does it happen? If ever indirect taxes such as value-added tax has been lowered, what happens? That will mean the selling prices for goods and services will be decreasing, allowing consumers to afford more goods and services, which will be increasing aggregate demand in the economy. Direct tax has a tendency of increasing disposable income, which tempts economic participants to demand more. We know that if direct taxes have been lowered, like the personal income tax has been lowered, the households or employees will be remaining with more disposable income in their pockets, which will be pushing them or encourage them to demand more goods and services, which will increase aggregate demand. Then we move to the constructionary fiscal policy. So we know if it's constructionary, that simply means the state intervene by doing what? Intervene by increasing taxes and decreasing government spending. So this is contractionary fiscal policy. That's when it occurs when the government intervenes by increasing taxation and decreasing government spending. What is the effect of doing such? If ever the state increase taxes in the economy, there will be less disposable income and less real income, which will lead to consumers having less income in their pockets and demand less goods and services. Should the government intervene by maybe decreasing government spending, that means the government can postpone existing infrastructure project, can stop planned infrastructure project not to continue, which will lead to less job opportunities. The state cannot adjust up wage and salaries for its employees. The state can reduce funding on state-owned enterprises. So those are some factors. The state cannot adjust up maybe social transfers. By doing so, that will be decreasing money flow in the economy, and it will lead to people having less income in their pockets. Then there will be less demand for goods and services. How do we implement and where do we implement this kind of the policy, which is constructionary? It is implemented when the economy is at peak of prosperity. So it is implemented when the economy is overheating at peak of prosperity. This is done to cool down the level of inflation and reduce level of imports in the economy. We know that inflation is too high whenever the economy is at peak. Peak economy means that there's more inflation tendency. There's also more importation. So why there's inflation at peak? There's inflation at peak because in there people are employed, there's more disposable income. If there's more disposable income, then people are always tempted to spend. They spend or buy more goods and services, which lead to the demand increasing faster than the supply. Then inflation will prevail. How do people get to import? If people are having more disposable income and there's more credit creation in the economy, people will simply decide to import more goods as they change their lifestyles, which is bad for the economy because it leads to imports increasing faster than exports and cause the balance of payment deficit. Decreased government spending lowers cash injection and lower employment rate or employment opportunities as well as disposable income. Meaning, if ever in the economy the government spending has been lowered, what will happen? There will be less money flow in the economy. It will decrease. As money flow decreases in the economy, that will lead to less employment opportunities will be decreasing if ever the infrastructure development project has been stopped. Also, disposable income will be decreasing. If ever disposable income decreases, then the aggregate demand will be decreasing. As the aggregate demand decreases, that will be also be decreasing the economy. This is what we can use as a part of the summary to see what is the effect of decreasing government spending. Aggregate demand decreases as a result of lowered disposable income. If ever there's a lower income, people tend to demand less goods and services in the economy. And then the increase in taxation, which can be direct or indirect tax, negatively affect disposable income and real income. So what happens? And as tax increase, if ever maybe indirect tax has been increased, what happens? It has tendency of decreasing real income and aggregate demand. We know that indirect taxes such as VAT, if it's been increased or value-added tax has been increased, it decreases the real income as people tend to afford less goods and services because, they tend to afford less goods and services because the selling price of goods and services will be high. That will always lead to what? It will lead to them demanding less goods and services. Whenever direct tax has been increased, such as personal income tax, there will be less disposable income, which will lower the demand by the household. Increased taxation decrease money from the consumer's pocket and result to the decrease in the aggregate demand. So let's check. Let's say maybe we're talking about the increase in pay-as-you-earn. If pay-as-you-earn has been increased, which is the personal income tax, then what is going to happen? If it increases, the disposable income will be decreasing. As disposable income decreases, what is going to happen? People will be demanding less because of less money flow. So the aggregate demand will decrease. If ever then the demand for goods and services is decreasing, that will be discouraged us from firms from producing more goods and services. The productivity will decrease because firms are no longer, because people are no longer having more income. And then the productivity decrease, GDP decrease, and then economic growth will also be decreasing due to the fact that taxation or personal income tax has been increased. And then we talk about also the likes of increasing value-added tax. VAT has been increased. What will happen then? The real income will decrease, meaning people will afford less goods and services because our prices will be increasing. Prices of goods will increase and then aggregate demand will decrease, which will lead to firms being discouraged to produce more. And then that will mean GDP will decline and economic growth will also be decreasing because of increasing taxation. Then we move to the monetary policy. to the monetary policy. Remember, this is the policy by the central bank which focus on stabilizing prices in the economy. To positively increase aggregate demand, the central bank can use expansionary monetary policy. What is that? That happens when the state reserve bank intervenes by increasing money supply in a form of maybe decreasing repo rate, decreasing credit reserves, also buying bonds from commercial banks, and also relaxing moral persuasion. Expansionary monetary policy occurs when the central bank decreases repurchase rate, decreases credit reserves, buy bonds from commercial banks, and also relaxes or ease moral persuasion or moral suasion. It is implemented when the economy is at trough. When the economy is doing well, the Reserve Bank must intervene by trying to increase money supply in the economy so that there will be more demand for goods and services. This increases money supply in the economy and stimulate aggregate demand. We know that if ever there's more money supply, people will always be willing to spend on goods and services. So by that situation or by that decision of implementing expansionary fiscal policy, monetary policy, there will be more money supply and more demand for goods and services. Lowered repurchase rate, increased credit availability since borrowings will become affordable. Whenever Reserve Bank intervene by decreasing repo rate, that will lead to credit becoming affordable and cheap in the economy. So we say repo rate, it has been lowered. We decrease repo rate as a Reserve Bank. What is going to happen? The credit affordability will be increasing because people will find it cheap to borrow money from commercial banks. As the credit affordability increases, that will mean the money supply will be increasing. As money supply increases, remember money supply is a circulation of money in the economy. As money supply increases, that will mean the aggregate demand for goods and services will be increasing. If the aggregate demand for goods increases in the economy, firms will be encouraged to produce more goods and services. So productivity will be increasing. If productivity increases, that positively affect GDP and economic growth. They will be increasing. Then the economy will be turning from trough and reach maybe the recovery, even up to prosperity because of expansionary monetary policy. Lowered credit reserve decreases vault money in the banking sector and increase the money supply. Remember, the credit reserve referred to the ratio that commercial banks must hold on to without giving out into the economy. So, should Reserve Bank intervene by decreasing credit reserves, that will allow commercial banks to have more money available to give out as loans. I will repeat, commercial banks function to sell money by creating more money. So, if ever they have money that is available, they want to create loans with that money so that they will be able to get even more money as they impose the interest rate. So if ever the cash reserves has been lowered, that will mean the money supply will increase and then the vault money will be decreasing. Then if people have money, they are always tempted to spend. Aggregate demand will be increasing in the economy, which will lead to firms being encouraged to produce more goods and services. As firms produce more, that will be increasing our GDP within the country due to the fact that the cash reserves was lower to encourage firms to have more cash available in circulation and then they can use that to create even further loans. The purchase of shares or bonds by the Reserve Bank from commercial banks in the open market is known as quantitative easing. It increases money supply. If the Reserve Bank intervenes by buying bonds from commercial banks or in the open market, that will lead to commercial banks having more money available in them. How does it happen? Check the open market transaction. What do we do as a Reserve Bank? Reserve Bank will buy bonds. If it buy bonds, what is going to happen? There will be more money supply available in commercial bank because when they sell their bonds to Reserve Bank will be giving them money. So money supply is increasing. As money supply increases, people will always be tempted to spend. Commercial banks will be creating credit. They will invite people to come and take loans in there so that they will be able to make money. So what is going to happen? As people take those loans, there will be more credit creation and more demand for goods and services. So there will be greater demand for goods. As the demand increases, everything above will be happening. Relaxing moral suasion or moral persuasion or moral pressure in the banking sector increases the level of credit and encourage the spending in the economy. We know that if ever banks or Reserve Bank relaxes moral persuasion, it puts less regulation on on the banking sector. That will allow commercial banks to give more loans into the economy. As there are more loans given to the society, that will then create more credit. We know that people are always tempted to spend if there's more money available. They spend money they don't even have, which is the credit, which will lead to more demand for goods and services. So what do we do? The moral persuasion, what do we do with them? We relax them. We relax or ease. As we relax them, there will be more credit creation in the economy, and then also there will be more money supply. And then with more money supply, the aggregate demand in the economy will be increasing. That is caused by the fact that Reserve Bank intervened by relaxing moral persuasion. What about the contractionary monetary policy? That is the policy that is implemented by Reserve Bank by decreasing money supply in the economy to dampen an overheating economy. Remember, if ever the economy is overheating, that means the economy is up there at peak of prosperity. The central bank uses contractionary monetary policy. So, contractionary monetary policy occurs when the central bank increases repurchase rate, increase cash reserves, and then sell bonds to commercial banks and also tighten moral persuasion. It is implemented when the economy is overheating or is at peak of prosperity to reduce the effect of high inflation as well as import tenants. Like I mentioned before, that at peak we have more inflation, we have high level of importation. So to cool down that overheating economy and prevent high level of import, Reserve Bank can intervene by decreasing money supply in the economy so that there will be less money available in the economy, less demand for goods and services, even less demand for imports. This lowers money supply in the economy and reduces aggregate demand. So high repurchase rate decreases credit availability since borrowings become expensive. Let's check. If ever Reserve Bank increases repo rate has been increased, there will be less credit availability or affordability. So people will afford less loans because loans will be expensive. And then that will mean money supply will decrease in the economy. As money supply decreases in the economy, that means people won't be demanding more. So aggregate demand will be decreasing. Then productivity will decrease, GDP will decrease. Also, economic growth will also be decreasing. High cash reserve increases vault money in the banking sector and decreases money supply. If ever cash reserves has been increased, that will mean the vault money will be increasing, meaning the money that is available but cannot be used by commercial banks will be increasing in the banking sector, which will lead to the money supply decreasing. As money supply decreases, there will be less demand for goods and services. So aggregate demand is then decreasing, which will lead to less productivity. And then if productivity decreases, it will also lead to less GDP and less economic growth. The sale of shares or bonds by the Reserve Bank to commercial banks will decrease money supply. If ever the central bank intervened by selling shares or bonds or financial securities in the open market, let's say that is open market transaction. So what does Reserve Bank do? It's selling shares to commercial banks. What is going to happen then? There will be less money supply available because as commercial banks are buying those shares or bonds, they remain with less money. Money supply will be decreasing. As money supply decreases, that will mean aggregate demand for goods will be decreasing in the economy, which will further lead to decreasing productivity by firms, decreased GDP, and also lower economic growth. Tightening moral persuasion in the banking sector decreases the level of credit creation and discourages spending and slow down the economy. As the central bank intervened by tightening moral persuasion, so the moral persuasion has been tightened, making it difficult for commercial banks to create loans or credit. What is going to happen? That will lead to less credit creation will drop, and then money supply will drop, which will lead to aggregate demand also decreasing in the economy. So these are some, monetary policy instruments, if they are used in the constructionary way. Remember, that's when the economy is at peak of prosperity. We slow it down to cool down overheated economy by decreasing inflation effect, also decreasing the import tendency. So this is the short run graph whenever we talk about maybe the influencing the demand side policies only. Here we have only used the demand side policy. We have not yet implemented the supply side policies. So on your vertical axis, we have the price horizontal, we have the quantity. And then original demand curve being downward sloping from top left to the bottom right. And then original supply curve, which is also upward sloping. Then wherever they meet, we have equilibrium point, which is E. Our price original is P, quantity is Q. So that is the original situation. So remember, we improve aggregate demand. We improved the demand side policies. Let's check what is going to happen. The demand will be shifting to the right from 80 to 81. And then what will happen? We will have the effect of increase in prices because supply did not respond to the change in demand. We don't have any AS1 here. We only have original supply curve. So that increased the price from P to P1 and also increased the quantity demanded from Q to Q1, but quantity supplied remained at Q. That's where you see an arrow indicating the increase in the price, which is regarded as an inflation at peak. And then we have an increase in the quantity demanded, but quantity supplied remains at Q because firms did not increase the supply for goods and services. That is E1, which is the new equilibrium. So this is the graph being explained. Aggregate demand AD and aggregate supply at the AS are in equilibrium at point E. If aggregate demand is stimulated so that it moved from to 81 and aggregate supply remain unchanged, it remains constant at AS, less real output becomes available, which increases the price to Q1, which is inflation. Quantity demanded increases to Q1 while the quantity supplied remains at Q, which is the cause of the inflation effect. So supply is often sticky and fixed in the short term as it remains unchanged. Therefore, if aggregate demand increases to 81 and aggregate supply does not respond, intersection is at point E1. The solution is to create conditions that ensure that the supply is more flexible to prevent any inflation effect, meaning the supply must also be stimulated. That's why under paradigm or in new economy paradigm, we implement both the supply side and demand side so that there will be no inflation effect. Then we talk about inflation now as one of the components. So we know if ever economic growth increases, there will be more income per capita, which will be increasing disposable income in the economy. So as economic growth in the economy is very, very high, or in the country is very, very high, income per capita will also be increased, which will be increasing the money in the pocket of the consumer or disposable income. When income increases, it creates temptations for consumers and producers to increase their demand for goods and services. Remember, with more money available in the economy, there will be increase in aggregate demand. So if aggregate demand is stimulated and aggregate supply remain fixed, is not responding quick to the change in demand, that will be increasing the price. So then less output becomes available due to supply constraint, and as a result, prices will be increasing. So whenever the demand increases more than the supply, so supply remains inflexible, that will be causing prices to increase. The significant or sustainable increase in general price level is known as inflation. So let's check. If ever there's high level of economic growth in the economy, high economic growth, what is going to happen? Income per capita will be increasing. If ever there's more income per capita, we come across the situation of more disposable income. With more disposable income, there will be more aggregate demand. People are always tempted to spend. As people demand more goods and services, then aggregate supply remain unchanged, is inflexible. This indicates that supply is not changing, remains inflexible. That will lead to prices increases. If ever prices are increasing significantly, that means that will lead to inflation. So be aware of that, of the fact that economic growth will lead to more per capita income in the economy and more disposable income. As supply, as income increase, people are always tempted to spend. There will be more aggregate demand, and if supply remains inflexible or unchanged or less responsive to the increase in demand, that will be causing increase in prices. And as prices are increasing significantly, that is regarded as inflation. Inflation prevails when aggregate demand increases faster than aggregate supply, meaning when supply is not responsive to the change in demand, that will cause inflation. This is when supply become inflexible or less responsive to change in the demand because of supply constraints or challenges. The solution is to create conditions that ensure supply is more flexible to change when the demand is also changing. The unemployment. We know that whenever economic growth is relatively high in the country, what happens? There will be more demand for labor and more job opportunities. That increases employment and decreases unemployment. So as unemployment is decreasing in the economy, what is going to happen? That will lead to more disposable income available in the pocket of the consumer, and then they will be demanding more goods and services. So as unemployment decreases, inflation is increasing on the other hand because of more income available. And that relationship is illustrated through the Phillips curve here. Demand-side policies are effective in stimulating economic growth. So economic growth increases the demand for labor, which result to the decrease in unemployment and increase in employment. As unemployment falls, employment rises, which increase the disposable income as well as the aggregate demand in the economy. So that for that reason, inflation will start to rise because of the fact that unemployment has been lowered and employment increased, which has caused high disposable income. The relationship between unemployment and inflation is explained through the Phillips curve. Let's check. We talk about economic growth increasing. With more economic growth, what is going to happen? There will be more demand for labor by businesses, meaning employment will be increasing and then unemployment will be decreasing. And then as this situation, what is going to happen then? That will lead to more disposable income. So there will be more money available to spend on goods and services, which will then shift, which will lead to what we call inflation increasing. So inflation will be increasing as people are having more money to demand goods and services, especially if what we call supply side is not flexible enough to respond to the change in the demand for goods and services. So here we talk about the Phillips curve now. On our vertical axis, we have our what we call inflation rate, and then horizontal, we have unemployment rate. Then we have our point that will be indicating our PC, which is Phillips curve originally. Then that is 14% in the Phillips curve is touching our horizontal axis there, which create natural unemployment. And then let's check as what we call unemployment decrease from 14% to 10%. What happens to inflation? Before we go further, if ever unemployment is 14%, inflation is 0 because there's less income available. And then should the unemployment decline from 14% to 10%, what happens there? Inflation will start to rise from 0% to 2%, indicating that there's more money available and people have started to put pressure on producers to demand more goods and services. And then that is indicated by point B. And then point C indicates the further decrease in the unemployment rate from 10% to 8%. As the unemployment goes to 8%, that means employment rate has also been increased to 92%, indicated by point B. That increased inflation even further because there's more money supply available in the economy, which leads to people demanding more goods and services, while the supply is not flexible enough to respond to the change in demand. That we call that the PC original. Then we have PC1. There's an arrow indicating. So this is PC1, which shifted from right to the left. You can see it shifted from right to the left. Why? It has shifted because of the increase in the supply side policies such as education and training, as well as healthcare, and also deregulation that happen in the economy when the government reduces some laws that prevent the functionality of markets. That will cause to the shift of Phillips curve from PC to PC1. That there we have the point D indicated where our PC touches what we call a horizontal axis. That is the new natural unemployment indicated there. Explanation of the graph now. The Phillips curve shows the initial situation. Point A, which is this point, is the point of intersection of the graph with the axis. This is the natural unemployment rate of unemployment at 14% in that case, while inflation is 0%. This is the rate of unemployment or level of employment, 86%. Employment is 86%, causes no pressure on wages and salaries. And then we continue. As levels of unemployment left off, point A, inflation starts to rise. We know that we see it rising there from 0% to 2%. If the economy is stimulated through expansionary fiscal policy, monetary policy, so that unemployment rate falls to B, inflation increased to 2%. If the unemployment fell to 8%, then inflation goes to 6%. There it is. And then we continue with the explanation. There is an inverse or negative relationship between unemployment and inflation, because as the unemployment decreases, inflation will start to increase. As unemployment decreases, as unemployment increases, inflation will be decreasing. So the government can choose how much of unemployment they wish to trade off inflation. Supply side measures can be used to move the PC to PC1. Such measures include education, training, fewer legal restrictions, etc., including healthcare facilities being provided to employees. They can always be available and produce more goods and services in the workplace. Remember, Phillips curve is the curve that illustrates the relationship between inflation and the unemployment. On the new curve of the natural rate of unemployment is 9%. Demand can be stimulated to higher levels before the increase in the employment have an effect on the inflation rate. That's why at that point, inflation is not affected if ever PC shift from PC to PC1. Then we move to the supply side policies. These are policies that can be implemented to stimulate the aggregate supply in the economy so that there won't be supply constraint. Supply side policies are economic policies used to trigger the aggregate supply in the economy. Improve supply side policies increase the productivity and stimulate aggregate supply. The increase in aggregate supply means that firms can produce enough goods and services for consumers, meaning to meet the aggregate demand by consumers. So these are the supply side policies we will be discussing. I gave you a hint on them: decreasing cost of doing the business, improving efficiency of inputs, and improving efficiency of markets. They are discussed in detail. So it's a continuity of the essay. So we have decreasing cost of doing the business, where we talk about cash incentives or production subsidies, and then we talk about infrastructural cost as well as administrative cost. So we are checking them now. The cash incentives or production subsidies. So decreasing cost of production. If production costs decrease, more goods and services will be made available at all price levels, meaning aggregate supply will be increasing. Government can implement measures to decrease production costs of businesses, both directly and indirectly. How so? Lower cost of doing the business is a great incentive to business since they result to high production and high aggregate supply. Then we continue. We have cash incentives or direct subsidies. That's when the government intervened by providing direct subsidies to businesses that are willing to import, are willing to export their goods abroad, or that are willing to relocate. So it includes subsidies to businesses for business to locate in areas where there's a high level of unemployment. It also includes support given to local exporting businesses to enter global markets. So that's supported by giving the cash or grant so that they will take that money and fund their production so that there will be high level of aggregate supply. Incentives such as direct and indirect subsidies to encourage export can also decrease the cost of production by businesses. If ever businesses are given these incentives or subsidies, they tend to produce more goods and services. They tend to spend less. If ever they're given indirect subsidies like incentives, they tend to produce more goods without having to spend a lot of money. For instance, if the government can choose to say maybe it will do the research on behalf of exporters, instead of them paying for the research, they will get it for free. They will get information for free. That means instead of paying for research, they take that money and produce even more goods and services. That simply means the supply will be stimulated. Production subsidies have an effect of increasing productivity by businesses and increase the aggregate supply. Whenever firms are given production subsidies, they tend to have more revenue to produce. As they produce more goods and services, that will be increasing aggregate supply and lower the level of prices. Infrastructural costs. The high infrastructural costs are huge disincentive to businesses. If ever the cost of infrastructure, such as the cost of energy, transport, and communication, are very, very high, that become a disincentive to the businesses. Like in South Africa, these costs of this infrastructure are very high. That discourages businesses from producing more goods and services, because instead of producing goods, they take these revenues and pay for infrastructural services. These are controlled by the government in South Africa, even though they are relatively high. The government is in control of the cost of the infrastructure. Government can make a huge contribution to the reduction of cost of infrastructure by doing what? If ever it can be able to reduce this cost, there will be more productivity by firms, because they will have to spend the money that they pay for infrastructure services to produce goods and services. That will also result to them producing at the reasonable cost. Administrative costs include inspection cost, reports on the application of laws, regulations, and bylaws, tax returns, etc. that are done. That's a part of admin that is paid for by businesses, which is also adding up to the cost of doing the business by the business. So all of these costs add on the cost of businesses and are relatively high and should be reduced so that it can encourage businesses to produce more goods and services. The regulation is the removal of unnecessary laws and restrictions that make it difficult for firms to enter the market. Relaxed regulations or tax regulations can decrease the administrative cost of businesses, which will allow them to produce even more goods and services. Increasing efficiency of inputs. In this case, we talk about tax rates, capital consumption, human resource development, and free advisory services or schemes. So let's talk about them. The tax rate. We know that high personal income tax become a disincentive to work because it decreases disposable income. While high corporate tax or business tax is a disincentive to invest because it decreases what we call the net profits by businesses. And then high direct taxes high indirect tax such as VAT are also a disincentive to produce because they increase selling prices and result to people or consumers demanding less goods and services. So the government should intervene by lowering these taxes to encourage businesses to produce more goods and services. The capital consumption. Replacing capital goods regularly create opportunity for business to keep up with the latest technical trends. So if ever firms can always replace their machines regularly, that can lead to them being able to keep up with the new technological development, which will always increase their aggregate supply. Depreciation allowances are subtracted from the gross profit before taxes are calculated and decrease tax liability. In South Africa, Companies are allowed to write off computer equipment or dispose computer equipment every 3 years, and some machines can be written off after 5 years. Then commercial vehicles are written off or disposed after 5 years, so that businesses will always be able to buy new machinery and continue with the productivity. As the capital loses its lifespan, the productivity declines, which lowers the aggregate supply. Like I've said, that the capital of machinery or equipment is a part of wear and tear. As we produce goods using that particular machine, it loses the value. So if we use the machine that was produced in 2007 or that was bought in 2007, that machine, as in today, is having less lifespan and produces less goods and services, which will be a constraint to improving aggregate supply in the economy. So firms must always be able to buy new machines and replace old machines so that they can keep up with the production. Improving human resource development. Quality of workforce can be improved by improved healthcare, education, and training schemes, as well as mobility of labor. Healthy labor force is productive, so it's necessary for labor to have access to proper quality of healthcare. So well-skilled workforce are productive and efficient. They produce more goods and services at the shorter period of time using relatively less resources. We know that if workers are well-skilled and trained, they don't waste resources. They spend less amount of money to produce goods and services. So the workforce, the trained workforce or skilled workforce is very much efficient, and it produces more goods at the shorter period of time. So goods are produced at the right quantity, right quality, and the right time without having to waste any resource. Free advisory schemes or services. Free advisory schemes are given by government to local business that relocate to areas where there's a high level of unemployment and poverty. Whenever the business is willing to relocate to areas where there's a high level of poverty, those businesses are given what we call the free advisory schemes. And then local exporters are also beneficiaries of the free advisory schemes that are given by the government as they as they export their goods into the global market. That is done by the government to lower their cost of production. Free advisory schemes promote opportunities to export and establish business activities in foreign countries, research and development, and statistical information. So in this situation, the government make the provision of free information to these businesses that are exporters so that they will be able to grow and expand and become competitive in global markets. Others provide special help to SMMEs, small, micro, and medium enterprises to establish, manage, and perform. In South Africa, the government is involved in these services, which are the free advisory schemes or services. Increasing efficiency of markets. So we talk about deregulation, we talk about competition, we talk about leveling of the playing field. Let's check. Deregulation. A deregulation, remember, is the removal of unnecessary laws and regulations or bylaws by the government that prohibit the market. For the market to function very well, there must be less regulations. We know that firms or businesses are not willing to invest in countries where there is too much government intervention. They rather withdraw their investments. So that's why the government must intervene by the regulation. Address labor and other resource market inflexibilities. Remove price and import exchange control. Compared to developed countries, South African government is very much involved in markets, which is too much government intervention, which is chasing away most of investors from the country. Too much government intervention prohibits the entry of foreign direct investors into the economy. Whenever they see that there's too much government intervention, they withdraw. Deregulation or deregulating some laws can encourage and attract more investors into the economy and increase the aggregate supply. The competition. Competition encourage establishment of new businesses in the economy. If ever there's more competition and free entry for businesses, there will be more business that will be established to enter and compete in the economy. It attracts foreign direct investment into the domestic economy because it's open for everyone. Remove power imbalances or abuse by monopolies and opportunities of collusion by oligopolies among market participants. Whenever there's a fair competition, that simply means the power abuse by dominant position abused by monopoly and oligopolies will be reduced. So the Employment Equity Act promotes healthy competition, which improve businesses in the market and prevent restrictive practices. So in South Africa, the Commission Policy Act of South Africa is using Commission Tribunal and Commission Appeals Court to ensure healthy competition between business, to ensure also that there are no restrictive practices that exist between competitors in the market. Leveling of playing field. So private sector businesses must not be allowed to compete with state-owned enterprises. Public enterprises have legislative protection and are supported by the government through the tax system, which make competition between them between them and the private sector completely unfair. So we know that private sector is not funded by the government, but the public sector businesses are funded by the government, which make it to be very much unfair if they compete against each other. Privatization must be encouraged to improve efficiency of markets, because we know if a firm is being privatized, we know that the private sector is efficient. It always produces to make the profit, which increases aggregate supply. So if we encourage privatization, that will simply increases the functionality of business, and there will be more entry of business into the economy, which will be increasing productivity. And corruption as well as nepotism should be eliminated to ensure that there's a pure functionality of the market in the economy. This is the long-run equilibrium where we change both demand side and supply side. Original points are here, and then aggregate demand is shifting from 80 to 81, meaning we've shifted the aggregate demand. So we want to see if ever we shift aggregate supply like we've been promoting the supply, what is going to happen? Will there be any inflation effect? No, there will be no inflation effect. We can see that the 80 is shifting from left to the right, and then we have the point F in there. Then you see our supply is responding to the change in demand. Demand increased to 81. Supply is also increasing to AS1. You can see now we have AS1, meaning now, since we have used economic paradigm by influencing both demand side and supply side policies, the supply is now flexible enough to do what? To match aggregate demand changes. Remember, the supply can be fixed in the short run due to the fact that some inputs are fixed. Land is fixed in the short run. The capital is fixed in the short run. So it will be impossible for firms to quickly respond with the supply to the change in demand in the short run. But in the long run, they can be able to be flexible enough to respond quickly to the change in demand. That's why we say there's a long run aggregate supply and aggregate demand based on the new economic paradigm. Then you can see quantity demanded is increasing. Quantity demanded and supplied both increase from Q to Q1, which then shows us that the paradigm has been implemented, which means that also the supply is flexible enough in the long run to meet the changes in aggregate demand. There you see the increase in quantity demanded and quantity supplied. The graph explanation, aggregate demand, original points have been explained before. So we can see now, new point, if aggregate demand is stimulated so that it moved to 81 and aggregate supply respond promptly to relocate at AS1, the larger the real output becomes available without any price increase. You can see that price remains constant. It doesn't increase because both demand and supply are moving simultaneously without any effect. Then both 80 and 81 and AS1 meet at point F, which shows the increase in quantity demanded and supplied from Q to Q1. We can see they have both increased from Q to Q1 without having to cause any effect on the prices. The solution is to create conditions that ensure that supply is more flexible. We have seen supply being flexible now since it moved to AS1, and then the cost of increasing production is completely flexible. A greater real output can be supplied at any given price level. And then that was your new economic paradigm in both the demand side and supply side policies. Remember, it's an essay. As the examiner assesses you, it can be discussing in detail the new economic paradigm stroke smoothing business cycle. You must answer that question based on both sides, expansionary and contractionary. If you use demand side policies, you can draw your Phillips curve, explain your Phillips curve. You can even draw the graph for the demand side alone if it's been affected. You go to the supply side to explain in detail. After that, you go further, you draw the graph only for supply side, and then you can also integrate the graph for both demand and supply side policies. Now we move to the features underpinning forecasting. So we have the list. So features underpinning forecasting are used in forecasting to give preview of possible future economic changes. Remember, if we forecast, we want to foresee what can happen even in the future. They function to give highlights on what economists and authorities can expect in the future. Whenever we see these features, we can assume what is likely to happen in the economy. So they give us a highlight or the glimpse or direction on what can be expected in the economy. Past data is used to forecast the economy as relevant assumptions are made. So we use existing data to assume what can happen even in the near future based on future economic performance. The following are the features used to forecast the economy. So here they are: leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincidence, composite indicators, extrapolation, trend line, length, amplitude, and moving averages. They will be discussed. Remember, we discussed them in detail because that the part of an essay according to the 2021 examination guideline. The question can be discussing detailed features underpinning forecasting, or they say can discussing detail maybe indicators, discussing detail indicators related to features underpinning forecasting when they shift, or they can say discussing detail all features underpinning forecasting, excluding indicators. So you must be careful as you read the question so that you answer what has been required for you to answer. Leading indicators. Leading indicators, we call them indicators that will always change before economy changes. So they always come before economy has changed, meaning as they come in, it can maybe 3 months before. What do they do as they come in? They give us a highlight, or what we call a glimpse of what is it's highly possible to happen in the economy. So as the indicator kicks in, we will have an idea that, okay, economy will be increasing in the near future. So you talk about maybe job advertisement. If ever jobs are being advertised now, we'll have an assumption that, okay, people will be employed in the near future, and there will be more productivity, more money supply, more GDP, due to the fact that we have just seen that jobs have been advertised. If ever there's more purchase or importation of capital goods or machinery, we have an assumption that there will be increasing productivity in the near future. If there are new companies registered in South Africa, we have an assumption that there will be more employment and more job creation, which will be leading to GDP and economic growth in the country. So leading indicators give consumers, businesses, and the state or government authorities a glimpse on the direction in which economy might be heading. We get to know, or to get the highlight or possibilities of future economic performance. When these indicators rise, the level of economic activity will also rise in a few months. So these indicators will be rising first in prior. After that, the economy will be rising also to concur with the changes in indicators. They are used to, in extrapolation as a tool to predict the future economic status. So we can use them to predict. So the question can be to you, how can leading indicators used to forecast economy? Leading indicators can be used by economists to predict the future economic performance, as they give the highlight of what is likely to happen in the economy. Examples of leading indicators are job advertisement space, number of new firms or companies registered, the money supply. If ever there's more money supply, we know that there will be more demand and there will be more economic growth in the near future. Also, we talk about the number of capital goods or machinery imported. That can also be a part of the leading indicator. So leading indicator is indicated here graphically. As usual, index of economic activity, the trend line. Economy is red, a leading indicator comes in our green color. Let's check. There we go. The indicator comes first. As the indicator comes first, it is showing that economy might increase in the near future, and then the economy will be following, meaning indicator was the one to come first, and then economy comes to confirm. Indeed, indicator did show us that increase. Lagging indicators. If you know leading indicators, you must just opposite, which is then opposite to each other, then you understand it. These are indicators that change after the economy has changed. Remember, leading were changing before. Now lagging change after. What is the function of lagging indicators? They confirm what has already happened in the economy. They change after the economy has changed. They reach each phase and turning point later or in few months. They function to confirm what has happened in the economy. The question can be, how can economists use lagging indicators to forecast economy? They use them to confirm what has already happened in the economy. Lagging indicators won't change direction until after the business cycle has already changed the direction. They change few months later after economy has already changed. Lagging indicators confirm what has already happened in the economy. Examples of these indicators include number of hours worked in construction, as well as total commercial vehicles sold. These are the examples of lagging indicators. Then we have our economy being red and the indicator. So economy comes first and the indicator will be coming after. This is the graphical explanation. We go further to coincidence indicators. So these are the indicators that changes as the economy changes. They change at the same time with the economy. No one comes behind, they move simultaneously. And then they change, they change because of changes in the economy, meaning they show us the current economic state, they show us what is currently happening in the economy. They indicate the actual state of the economy. If the economy reaches peak, they also reach peak. If it reaches trough, they also reach trough. Examples of coincidence indicators include retail sales as well as real GDP. If ever we are buying goods in the wholesale or in the market, sales are increasing at the same time. Also, if we produce more goods now, also the GDP will be increasing. These are the coincidence indicators. They move simultaneously. You can see that The red line is together with our dots here for the indicator. So it moves at the same time. None of them remains behind, which is good. It indicates that they move at the same time, they coincide, they reach each peak and trough at the same time to confirm the actual state of the economy. The composite indicators, this is the group of both leading indicators, lagging indicators, and coincidence together, as they are used to benchmark the economy to create the single value. A composite indicator is a summary of various indicators in the same type into the single value. There will be a composite leading indicator, composite lagging indicator, and composite coincident indicator. The three composite indicators are often used to calculate the single composite indicator. A single composite indicator is a single number to benchmark the country's economic performance. Extrapolation. So this is the use of known information to discover the unknown information. Means to estimate the unknown while using known facts. So we are using the known data to discover the unknown information. So known information or facts are used to discover unknown information, and then it is a technique that economists use to predict the future. The future by using existing or the past data or information. The country uses real GDP figures, inflation rate, exchange rate value to predict the future economic performance as to extrapolate. The amplitude, remember, it measures the distance from peak trend line and trough trend line to peak. So amplitude refers to the vertical height or height difference between a trough and the next peak of the cycling. The larger the amplitude, the more extreme the changes that occur in the economic variables. The longer upward amplitude indicates the strength or strong underlying forces of the economy. So the longer the downward amplitude indicates the weakness of the economy. Whenever the amplitude increases, is upward upward amplitude increases for longer, that means the strength of the economy. And then whenever the amplitude decreases longer going down, that means the weakness of the economy. We continue. Amplitude continues. So remember, according to the exam guideline, you must be able to indicate amplitude on the graph or to draw the business cycle and show us the amplitude. This arrow indicates the construction period, which is our amplitude. It is the downward amplitude. So as the downswing or construction. This arrow that is going up is showing us the amplitude, which is the upward amplitude. That's why we say in definition, measure the distance from peak to trough to peak. That is your amplitude. So there is a downward amplitude and the upward amplitude. The trend line. So the trend line is the line that shows the direction of the economy. It shows us where the economy is heading. So the trend can differ into three. We have positive trend, negative trend, and constant or horizontal trend. The trend line that rises gradually and will be positively sloped in the long run. So whenever trend line is moving upward or positive, it indicates that economy will be increasing in the near future. This rising line indicates the growing economy. Upward trends are used because it is believed that economy increases or rises over time. The trend line normally has a positive slope because the production capacity of the country increases over time, does not remain constant, doesn't go down, but it increases. So it will always be fair to have the upward trend line because we know that economy increases over time instead of decreasing. The trend can be positive, horizontal, or downward. So we check the trends now. These are three different trends. The first one, this is the positive trend. So it's positive because it indicates that economy will be increasing in the near future. And then we have the second one, which will be horizontal trend. So this horizontal trend indicates that economy remains constant for the given period of time. It does not increase. Whatever happens will be moving along the trend, but the value will remain constant here. If it's 10 million economy, it will remain at 10. And then we have the negative trend or downward trend. There you go, indicating that economy will be decreasing in the near future. Then that indicates the decrease in economic variables on the index this side. There we say it is the negative trend or downward trend. So as we discuss the trend line, you simply define the line that shows direction of the economy. It shows us where the economy is heading. It can be horizontal, downward or positive or upward. Then be able to draw it and indicate the meaning of the positive trend. It indicates the possible growth of the economy in the near future. Horizontal indicate that the economy will remain constant for the given period of time. The downward trend simply indicate that the economy will be decreasing over a certain period of time. It won't be increasing. Then we talk about the length. Also here, you must be able to use the graph to show us or to indicate the length of the business cycle. Length of a business cycle is measured from peak to peak and from trough to trough. That's a length, because remember, on our horizontal axis there we have time of duration, which is the time series. It indicates the duration taken by the cycle to be the complete cycle. In that case, we call that duration a part of the length. The length is measured as the number of years it takes for economy to move from one peak to another peak. So it can take from 3 to 5 years, can take from 7 to 11 years, can take from 15 to 25 years, can take from 45 to 60 years, up to infinity. That will be the length of your business cycle. So remember, the length of the business cycle also informs the nature or the type of the business cycle between the contractive, the goosenet, the kitchen, as well as the juggler. So a full cycle therefore include peak, contraction phase, and the expansion phase. If we have a full cycle, we need to see all phases and both turning points of the business cycle. There must be a peak, and then from then, remember, peak is the beginning or is the end of upswing and the beginning of downswing. There must be a contraction that is characterized by both a recession and depression, and then there must also be a trough. Remember, as you are peaking, you will also be increasing to expansion period, which will be recovery and prosperity. That will be indicating to us the full business cycle. Longer cycles show the strength of the economic performance, because having the economy that will be swiftly moving from peak to peak, trough to trough, that will be indicating inconsistent economy. The business cycle might take longer to reach any phase to indicate that the economy is strong and it has a strength. It's not moving quickly. Cycles may overshoot. This means that activity in terms of some composite indicators increase beyond the normal level. Then we have the business cycle. You must be able to identify the length of the business cycle. There is the length indicated from peak to peak, then it's a length. And then we have a length also down there, indicated from trough to trough, then we have a length. So it is important for you, according to the examination guideline, to be able to identify or indicate the length or draw the graph to show us the length of the business cycle, so that we will be able to obtain some marks. Then we have moving averages. So moving averages is known as a statistical tool or data used to analyze the changes in economic performance over a certain period of time. So we call this one a data series or series of data that is used by economists, government authorities, and business people to analyze the economic performance, economic changes over a period of time. It is a method of repeatedly calculating series of different average values along the time series or to produce a smooth curve. So this moving average is used to iron out minor fluctuations of the business cycle, because as we take the data series, we can be able to use the time series to calculate moving averages. If ever then we take the data series to calculate moving averages, we are trying to iron out these upswings and downswings. You will see if you will see with the worksheet where you are given a chance to calculate moving averages and draw the actual business cycle. The upswings and downswings are minimized because of moving averages. Moving averages are used to minimize or eliminate the effect of short-term fluctuations like seasonal fluctuations in the business cycle. To calculate moving averages, economic indexes are added based on the time series and divided by number of years. So that simply means the data series is added based on the time series and divided by the number of years. If ever we calculate moving averages for 7 years, we must add all of the data series for 7 years and divide by 7. If ever we calculate 3 years, we must add data series for 3 years and use time series of 3 years to divide. So that gives us the moving averages. So by creating moving averages, economies or businesses can be able to analyze economic trends over a period of time. So it assists the government and economies or businesses to be able to analyze the economic trends or possibilities in the economy over a certain period of time. How do we calculate moving averages? Data series is added when evaluating trends of economic performance over a short term or the long term. So we put data series together so that we can divide by time series. Moving averages can be calculated for 3 months up to 5 years, when smoothing the minor fluctuations of the business cycle. It depends here. This is not fixed. Let it depend with the examiner what is being mentioned. If you have to calculate moving averages for 7 years, you can do so. That simply means you will get one-off number of moving average. If you are given 7 years, you add the whole data series divided by 7, you get one moving average. But if you divide it into different, maybe 3 years up to infinite, that simply means you will be able to iron out those minor fluctuations of the business cycle. Months or years data series is added and divided by the total number of years to discover moving averages. In that case, we take data series and add together and divide it by a number of years, which is the time series. The following is an example of how moving averages can be calculated. So calculating moving averages for the period of 3 years. There you go. We are given 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now, we need to calculate. Let's look at the question. We need to calculate moving averages. How do we go about calculations? If it's 3 years, firstly, let's check here. Yeah, let's go. Then we do this. You will be having dash and dash because we are using 3 years. Then you say 2017, 2018, 2019. You add them together. You add what we call the data series. This is the data series. So you add the data series for 2017, 2018, and this gives you moving. So this is known as GDP or data series. This gives us moving average. You will say 5 plus 8 plus 9. And then you get, if we say 5 plus 8 plus 9, we divide by 3, we get 7,3. Then we put it down there. And then you continue. You leave your 5 because we are done with 2017. You go to 2018, 19, 20. You will be saying 8 plus 9 plus 11. There we go. 8 plus 9 plus 11 divided by 3. It gives you 9,3. There you have your 9,3 moving average. It's moving up. And then also you leave 2018 because we are done. You go to 2019. It's 19, 20, 21. You will say 9 plus 11 plus 4. Then what do you get? 9 plus 11 plus 4 divided by 3, you get 8. So there's a turning point, meaning our 9.3 is our turning point. We go to 8 now. After that, you leave 2019, you are done with it. You go to 2020. You will say 11 plus 4 plus 6. There you go, 11 plus 4 plus 6 divided by 3 years, you get 7. It's still going down, so we are not turning anymore. Then after that, we go further. We leave this 2020, you go to 2021. It's 4 plus 6 plus 10. You get your 6 divided by 3. You get 6.6, which is here. Then you get your moving average. After that, you can simply plot your business cycle. So let's see maybe if we can be given a chance to plot the business cycle. Maybe we can do this. Okay, before the end, we need to go back slightly. Okay. Then, okay, and the ink. Then we have moving averages here. We need to plot our actual business cycle. How do we do? We have this, we have this. This is our time or period. This is the index of economic activities, which is our GDP. And then let's check. Our years, we have 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. After that, our what we call index, we take our moving averages. It's up to 9, meaning we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is our 9. And then after that, we need to see 2017 there was nothing, 2018 there was nothing. We remove. So, and then we start from 2019. In 2019, we have 7.3. Then we start to plot 2019. Maybe we assume it's 7.3. And then we go further, 2020. We have 9.3, meaning it goes up. So I don't have enough space here because of this. I'll put it here. It's 9.3. That's a dot. And then also 2021, we have 8. There's a turning point to 8. Where is our 8? Our 8 is there. 2021, there is 8. And then 2022, we have 7. It still goes down to 7. Where is our 7? 7 is there. 2022, there is 7. And then 2023, it's 6.6. Then where is 6.6? It must be somewhere there. Okay, it is somewhere there. Oh, we don't have 23. So our 23, will be here. 6.6, it will be somewhere there. Okay, my plot is 30 now. So you connect your actual business cycle, you connect, and you connect. You put your coordinates 7,3, and then there 9,3, and then here it's 8, and then down there, here, disregard this one, and then here it's 7, and then down there it's 6,6. This is how you can plot your actual business cycle by minimizing minor fluctuations of the business cycle. So you plot your moving averages here. You can see that there are no much fluctuations here. After we have calculated our moving averages, we have already been able to minimize minor fluctuations or upswings and downswings of the business cycle. If you can check this data, okay, it was simply upward. It was 5, 8, 9, 11. Then it went to 4. From 11, we had a turning point, which went to 4. From 4, it went up to 6, went further to 10. You can see that we have the upswing, downswing, and upswing. Those are fluctuations. But here, do we have such? No, we have just one upswing and one downswing, meaning we have ironed out minor fluctuations of the business cycle. So that was the calculation of your moving averages. Remember, if we recap, we started on the economic paradigm, emphasizing that it is important for the government to implement both demand side and supply side policies whenever it's moving business cycle, so that supply can be flexible enough to respond to the change in aggregate demand. Should the government only influence aggregate demand, that will always lead to what? It will always lead to the demand increasing faster than the supply, which will be causing inflation effect in the economy. So the state must implement both demand side and supply side policies simultaneously to prevent the effect of inflation. However, the challenge is that in the short run, supply remain fixed because some inputs are not flexible enough. So supply cannot respond quickly to the change in demand because of some fixed inputs. It is therefore necessary and important for the state to influence both the demand side and supply side simultaneously to prevent the effect of the inflation in the economy. Also, we spoke about unemployment, inflation under Phillips curve, drawing the graph and explaining it, and then also went further to show that relationship is negative between the two. Then we did the supply side policies, indicating, then we drew the demand curve and supply curve, showing the supply curve responding to the increase in demand, which is then the part of economic paradigm graph as for a long run. And then we went further to features underpinning forecasting, where we spoke about these features that can be used by authorities and the government to forecast the future performance of the economy. So we started by leading indicators, indicating that they change before the economy. Lagging indicator, they change after. Coincident, they change at the same time with the economy. Composite, which is the group of leading, lagging, and coincident indicators together. And then we spoke about extrapolation, which is the use of known data to discover unknown data. We spoke about the length, which is the moving from peak to peak and trough to trough, shows the duration taken by the cycle to be the full cycle. We spoke about the amplitude, which measure the distance from peak to trough and trough to peak, where we have the downward amplitude, which indicate the negative growth of the economy, and upward amplitude, which indicate the strength of the economy. And then we spoke about the likes of also the moving averages, where we use the data, or we said is an analytical tool that is used to monitor possible changes in the economy over a period of time. It is used to iron out minor fluctuations of the business cycle. We have calculated moving averages, and our business cycle ends here. Next week, we will be dealing with the public sector. So I believe this lesson will be of the greater incentive to you and will benefit you as you go forward. Remember, on the 26th of February, you are writing your SPA. So it's important that to play around this, these presentations, as well as the tasks that are sent to you or your educators, that we call the worksheet. They will assist you to be able to be ready for our our project or SPA or assignment. And then remember, the control test will be written on the 14th of March for this year. That's when now you will be done with your 150 marks for term 1. I wish you all the best. Thank you.